If you're thinking about visiting Acadia and you're trying to figure out what to do in Acadia National Park, then you're in the right place. In today's episode, we're going to look at the top 10 things to do in Acadia National Park. Hi, I'm James Ian, and I've written numerous guides and published several itineraries for Acadia National Park. By sharing my top things to do and places to visit in Acadia National Park, I'm going to help you have the best trip possible. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe right now. If you're watching or listening somewhere else, follow my podcast to get the episodes as they come out. Including as many of the best things to do near Acadia National Park, and of course inside the park itself, will help you get the most out of your trip and avoid that sinking feeling when you get back and someone asks, "Did you do blah 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 in Acadia?" And you have to reply, "No," because you didn't even know about it. I've written an article about the top 33 things to do in Acadia, but I'm only including the top 10 in this episode. To see what the other 23 are, click on the link in the description below to read the full article on my website, Parks Collecting. Be sure to stay to the end where, of all the fun things to do in Acadia National Park, I'll be sharing my favorite. And it may surprise you. Let's get into it.
Welcome to National Parks Collecting with James Ian. He's a national park expert. He is here to help you have the best national parks trips ever. Get tips, discover hidden gems, and learn all you need to know. This is your path to collecting national parks experiences, memories, and maybe even a stamp or two.
What are the best things to do in Acadia National Park? Remember to stay to the end where I'll be sharing my number one favorite Acadia activity. You'll want to know about it before you go. My first best thing to do in Acadia is to catch the sunrise or the sunset from the summit of Cadillac Mountain. At 1,532 feet, Cadillac Mountain is the highest point on the North Atlantic seaboard and of course therefore the highest point in Acadia National Park. From the summit, you can look out over the mountains, the islands, and the ocean. The views are sensational. A half-a-mile paved Cadillac Mountain summit trail winds in a loop around the summit, so you can drive to the top. You can also hike to the top, but you can drive to the top and then just do a short loop around the summit. Cadillac Mountain is famous for being the first place to see the sunrise in the United States, but not all year. It's only from October 7th to March 6th. At other times of the year, the sunrise is still beautiful, of course. The sunset is also great. The best place to watch the sunset is actually Blue Hill Overlook, which is about a quarter of a mile below the summit. The road to the summit of Cadillac Mountain is closed from December 1st to October 14th, so you can still hike to the summit. And from May to October, reservations are required for either the sunrise or for the rest of the day. So be sure to get reservations if you're traveling in those months. What's another great thing to do in Acadia? Another of my favorite things to do in Acadia National Park is to drive the Park Loop Road. The 27-mile Park Loop Road is one of the most scenic drives in the United States, and driving this loop is one of the must things to do in the park. You can either drive it in your own vehicle, or you can take the seasonal free Island Explorer shuttle. Route 4 goes along the Park Loop Road. Constructed between 1921 and 1958, the road loops around the southeastern corner of Mount Desert Island, passing many of the national park's main attractions, including Sand Beach, Otter Point, Jordan Pond, and the start of the road up to Cadillac Mountain. Drive slowly, both to enjoy the views and to be safe. The road is generally pretty crowded, especially in July and August. Most of the road is one-way, though the section between Wildwood Stables and Cadillac Mountain is two-way. The section of the Park Loop Road between Sand Beach entrance station to the park and Otter Cliff Road is open all year, but the rest of the road is closed in winter. A great way to enjoy the road is to take an audio tour. There's a link in the description below. You can buy the audio tour and then you download it onto your phone. You don't need cell service after that, but as you drive around the park and the road, it actually starts playing information as you get to particular points based on the GPS signal from where you are, even without the cell phone signal. It's pretty cool. What's another top activity in Acadia National Park? One of the best activities in Acadia is to go hiking, if you can, of course. The hikes in Acadia are legendary, and hiking on the trails is hands down one of my favorite things to do there. The national park is famous for its iron rung trails, which involve climbing up iron rungs that have been embedded into the sides of cliffs, as well as clambering over rocks and walking along narrow ledges with steep drop-offs. The most famous of these is the Beehive, but there are many others. There are trails that don't have this, of course. There's simple trails that are suitable for the whole family. And the good news is that if those iron rungs sound terrifying, but you still really want to see the views that are at the top of them, many of them have alternate trails that go up the back of the mountains, so you can still get to and enjoy the same views without the thrill of the iron rungs. If that doesn't sound thrilling, it sounds scary instead. Today, we're looking at the top things to do in Acadia National Park. And another activity that I strongly recommend is to cycle the historic carriage roads. Acadia National Park has over 45 miles of carriage roads. These historic roads are one of the park's main attractions. They were built between 1917 and 1940 at the behest of John D. Rockefeller Jr. They were originally obviously built for carriages, but nowadays you can go hiking on them. You can take carriage rides, but my favorite thing to do is to rent a bicycle and go cycling. Rockefeller also financed, designed, and supervised the construction of 16 stone bridges that were built at several stream and gorge crossings throughout the carriage road system. Since each of the bridges in Acadia is a unique work of art, it's fun to visit several of them because they're all different. One thing to note is that some of the carriage roads do extend outside the national park, and bicycles aren't permitted on those sections, only the sections inside the park. You can rent bicycles at several locations on Mount Desert Island, including Bar Harbor. Bicycle rentals are typically available from May through October, and you can put them on the front of the shuttle buses. What's a fun thing to do in Acadia National Park? Another of my favorite activities is to take a carriage ride on the historic carriage trails. They were built for horse-drawn carriages, so what better way to enjoy them than to take a carriage ride? It's really one of the most fun things to do in the park. There are several carriage tours available. Check with Carriages of Acadia, which was also known as Wildwood Stables, to confirm the times and the tours, and to make reservations, which you should make well in advance. Before we look at 5 more amazing things to do in Acadia National Park, if you're watching this on my @National Parks Collecting YouTube channel, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. What's another activity not to miss in Acadia? Many people overlook this, but this is actually one of the best national parks for tide pooling. At low tides, much of the rocky areas along the shoreline expose pools of seawater that are teeming with intertidal wildlife. Exploring these tide pools is lots of fun for everybody, but especially kids. You can often find creatures like sea stars, anemones, and crabs. Tide pooling's best 1.5 hours either side of the low tide. Always stay on the rocks, not in the pools themselves. Wear really grippy shoes that don't slip, and keep an eye on the sea for rogue waves and incoming tides. Always check the tide chart for the location before you go and plan your trip around that. Good locations to do tide pooling are Bar Island, which is an island just off Bar Harbor, which you can walk to at low tide only, but the causeway disappears completely at high tide, so it's very important to time your visit and your return very carefully. The Wonderland and Ship Harbor trails are short, easy, family-friendly trails that have great tide pooling, and also on the Shudik Peninsula, which is a lot less crowded. What's another top thing that visitors to Acadia National Park should do? Well, you should definitely visit Bass Harbor Head Lighthouse. You've probably seen stunning photos of Bass Harbor Head Lighthouse at sunset. This small lighthouse is one of the most photographed lighthouses in New England and one of the most famous attractions in Acadia National Park. While sunset is the most popular time to visit and photograph the lighthouse, the area is also beautiful at sunrise and in fact is worth visiting at any time of the day. The lighthouse, which dates from 1958, sits atop a rocky cliff. From the parking lot, there's a small walkway on the right side that takes you next to the tower, and to a lighthouse viewing area where you can see a panoramic view of the harbor and the islands in the distance. There's some plaques with detailed information about the grounds, the lighthouse, and its history. It also provides a great close-up view of the lighthouse tower. Another trail at the end of the parking lot on the left side of the buildings goes through woods for a short distance to the shoreline. It ends at a stairway that takes you down the front face of the cliffs and ends at a place where you can take the classic photos. To get a photo of the famous view of the lighthouse, you do need to climb out onto the rocks though, so be really careful. Particularly if they're wet, they can be very slippery and dangerous. If you plan to be there for sunset, you'll need to get there very, very early, as the parking area is small and it's very popular. Buses, trailers, or RVs are not permitted due to the narrow road and the small parking lot. So if you have that, take the shuttle. There are plenty of things to do in Acadia. What's one more? One thing I highly recommend is to get out onto the water. There are several ways to do this. One of my favorite is to go sailing. Taking a cruise in a sailboat around the waters and the islands is really great fun. The winds tend to be the strongest in the afternoons, so afternoon trips are generally livelier than the mornings or the sunset sailings, so keep that in mind. There's a couple of options. You can sail on a tall ship. It leaves from Bass Harbor. Sunset sail is really lovely. They've got beer and wine on board. It's very relaxing. You can also take a trip on a sloop, which is a much smaller boat. Therefore, you're going to feel it a lot more. It has maximum 6 passengers. Sloop, interestingly, I think, were Maine's original lobster boats. And they definitely have a very different feel from the large, tall ship. They're super fun, and you'll pass Bear Island and go around the Cranberry Islands. They leave from Southwest Harbor or Northeast Harbor, which are both on the quiet side of the island. Another way to get out on the water is to take one of the local boat tours. The park is home to plentiful marine life and bird life, and of course the scenery from the ocean looking at the islands is spectacular. There's a few different options. You can take private cruises, you can take group cruises. They usually have narrations with information about what you're seeing. So they're a fun way to get out on the water and learn some information as well. Another way to get out on the water, and my personal favorite, is to go kayaking or canoeing. You can explore the coastline at your own pace. There's often little pebbly beaches you can pull up on and relax or explore the nearby woods. You'll often pass porpoises and seals, and overhead there might be bald eagles and loons. It's very fun, very cool, and a nice different way to experience the park. What's another suggestion for first-time visitors to do in Acadia National Park? In addition to getting on the water, you can get in the water. One of my favorite things to do in Acadia in the summer is to go swimming. You don't need to look for beaches near Acadia National Park. There are 2 great swimming places inside the park itself. You can choose the ocean or you can choose a lake. The ocean beach is Sand Beach. It's the only sandy beach in Acadia National Park. The sand, interestingly, I think, is actually tiny little fragments of broken shells that have been pounded by the surf over thousands of years into fine sand. It's a really beautiful spot. The beach is surrounded by cliffs, and you can even see the beehive behind it. Be aware, though, that the water is cold, even in summer, and strong tides and rough waves are possible, so always keep an eye on the water conditions. If you want to go somewhere warmer and more pleasant for swimming, maybe not quite as beautiful, but still really lovely, is Echo Lake. Echo Lake Beach is a small human-made sandy beach in a cove at the southern end of the beautiful freshwater Echo Lake. Surrounded by cliffs and trees, it's a really lovely spot to relax, and unlike the freezing cold ocean at Sand Beach, it's a nice swimming temperature in the summer. The average summer water temperature is 64 degrees in June, 72 in July, 73 in August, compared to Sand Beach, which is in the 50s throughout the summer. What's the number one thing to do in Acadia National Park? So far, we've looked at 9 amazing activities. There's just one more left. Stay to the end to hear my absolute favorite thing to do in Acadia. But before we do, a quick recap. There are hikes, carriage rides, cycling, tide pooling, swimming, sailing, the park drive, Bass Harbor Head Lighthouse, the summit of Cadillac Mountain. You may be thinking, that all sounds amazing, but how on earth do I coordinate all of that into an itinerary that makes sense for me and my family? That's a good question. The park is huge. These activities are spread throughout the park. They're better at different times of the day, depending on the activity. Some parts of the park can get really crowded. Timing is key, which is why I created very detailed itineraries for Acadia National Park. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4-day itineraries to choose from, depending on how long you've got in the park. And each of them are designed to feature the highlights that you can see and activities that you can do in that period of time. Obviously, the more things that you want to do, try to stay longer. The 4-day itinerary would be the best option if you have the time available. Let's take a quick look at the itineraries. You can see here the 1, 2, 3, and 4-day options, and you can see what's covered in each of them. So basically how it works, you buy the itinerary, you get instant access to the downloadable PDF, which you can either save to your computer or your phone or print them out. I recommend printing them if possible. And then you just have an awesome trip. You can see here what's included. There's the contents, there's an overall map of the park, there's an overview. This goes on for several pages with useful information. And then for each day, there's a day-at-a-glance schedule. You can see here that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different options. These are happening at the same time in the same part of the park for different people with different mobility, different activity interests, so that you can split up, or if you're traveling together, you can choose which one is most suitable for you. And then if you did split up, if you're traveling with multiple people, you can rejoin later in the day and then you can split up again. Or if it's just you or you're traveling with people who have similar mobility and activity interests, then you can just choose one of these and create your own map through this. This is the overview, and then each of them is broken down into a great deal of detail with this is option B, for example. Here's the hike description, here's the view, here's the trail map. You'll also have meal suggestions, there's tips and warnings, things to think about, things to know about, parking tips, driving directions and maps, etc. So there's just a lot of detail there. You can see that by following one of these itineraries, you'll know exactly what to do and when, and how to connect them in a way that makes the most sense so that you're in the right place at the right time. Each of these activities is very carefully curated and timed so that you're in the right place at the right time. They will help take away the overwhelm and just give you all of the information that you need in one spot so that you don't need to worry about missing out on something, or you don't need to worry that you're not going to be somewhere at the time that makes the most sense. There's a link in the show notes below. It will take you through to this page, and then you can choose the itinerary for the length of time that you want to stay and make a purchase very easily there. Now, as promised, what's my number one thing to do in Acadia National Park? My absolute favorite thing to do in Acadia, and this may surprise you, is to enjoy popovers on the lawn at Jordan Pond House. Popovers are, if you don't know, they're like, I think they're a New England thing. They're kind of like a muffin, but they're big and puffy and airy. They're a little eggy, but you slather them in butter and jam. They're a specialty at the Jordan Pond House. On nice summer days, they set up tables out on the lawn, a direct view over Jordan Pond and the south and north bubbles behind it. On a sunny, warm day, it's just such an amazing, pleasant, enjoyable experience. It's really nice to relax after hiking or doing some of these other more physical activities. It's just pure bliss. My one caveat, get there early to avoid long lines. It is very popular. If you want help planning your trip, check the links in the description box below. There's a bunch of booking and planning resources that you can use to plan and book your trip. And keep watching my videos to get more help so that you can have the best national parks vacation ever. And if you want to get notified about the next episode, subscribe and click below.